like you can do anything.
Oh, nice, I guess. They're out of Canada. Oh, nice. Been to Canada in so long. Okay, red light's on. Welcome all. I didn't get my notes out to say my here. Welcome all to this meeting of the Harwich Board of Appeals on this Wednesday, April 27th, 2022. We are here to hear the applications that have been submitted to the board and duly advertised this evening. I can't find it, so welcome all. I will ask our people here to identify themselves, please. Board members first.
I'm Chris Murphy.
Brian Sullivan.
Al Donahue.
Dave Ryer.
David Nunley.
Alicia McKenna?
Alicia's our secretary. We are being recorded. That's why I was waiting for that red light to come on. They will put this up on YouTube as a YouTube video. I think they do most, if not all, the hearings now. So without further ado, I will ask our clerk, Mr. Donahue, to call our first, please.
Case number 2022-16. Sherry Mayat Brazy, the attorney, William Crow, 466 Howard Port. Owner of the property at 53 Freeman Street, assesses map 23, parcel R1, applicant seeks a special permit or any alternative, a variance to raise, place a non-conforming single-family pursuant to the Howard zoning bylaws 325-52 and 54 and 54A in MGL chapter 48, section 6 and 10, been continued from March 30, 22.
Attorney Crowell, welcome. If you could introduce yourself for the record, please.
Yes, Attorney William Crowell from Harwichport, representing the petitioner this evening on this continuation. And I'll preface it. Fortunately, my client, she was planning on attending this evening, but she lives off Cape and was not feeling well today, this afternoon, so she couldn't make it, but wanted to be. I will also say that subsequent to last month's hearing, she and her architect and husband took a look at the building plans and decided not to alter the roof line or lower the roof line, anything of that nature. And I have some handouts for you, one of which shows that the proposed dwelling will be 27 feet. And the limit under our bylaws, you know, is 30 feet. So it wasn't really, and they determined it wasn't really any higher than the existing dwelling. So they decided to leave it alone. Her husband, as I mentioned last time, is 6'5" tall. The ceilings on most new houses, from what she tells me through her architect, are 9 feet, but these are so they tried to keep that in mind so that the house isn't too high. So I have for each of you a handout that shows you that simple measurement of 27 feet. It also shows you that in order to have the garage fit in with the house, that they would be putting a new garage door on, but not removing any walls as was proposed last time. So a garage door that would be in keeping with the decor and outside appearance of the house, and also taking the vinyl siding off of the garage and putting on clapboard or wood shingles, something that's, again, more in keeping with the proposed renovations. 1, 2, 3, 4.
So before you go on, are the last time still valid?
Um, The bottom line answer is yes. I have a new plan to give you. Trying to get something from an engineer surveyor these days with the intensity of the market still is very difficult. But what they did was, in conversations with Mr. Price, the neighbor, and he requested that the parking area, just to refresh your memory, my point last time was, if it's grass, you don't have to have a designated parking area or parking spots if it's grass. But they've shown on this revised plan, they've shown a patio in front of the garage, and last time there was no patio. So they're showing a patio, and they're showing a reduced driveway area instead of a driveway going up to the garage. They're showing the driveway just coming into the lot somewhat, but it has not changed the site coverage. It's 29, and the site coverage is still the same at 29.9. I apologize, I could not get these plans to you earlier, and you still will not like them. I tried, we tried, the surveyor tried, I tried to make them bigger so they're more readable, but this was the best that we could do.
Okay. Just be careful of all the
Yes.
wires there.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Price, would you like a copy?
Fine, don't worry about it.
So the first one looks like this, 27 feet tall. And I circled the measurement. The second one looks like this. I circled the new garage door. That's the only change on the house plans. And the third one shows the certified plot plan with the zoning calculations in the lower left that have not changed. Any of the existing setbacks, proposed setbacks, everything's the same, but you'll see on the right-hand side, the proposed in front of the garage, and that the parking area in dotted lines just off of Hoyt Road is shown there, so that there would be 3 car widths, basically pointing towards the garage. But if they needed to go further onto the lawn, they could, as I stated earlier. So we're making the same argument that was made a month ago, that we are conforming as to site coverage now under 30% at 29.9, and we're going up a little bit on building coverage, a little bit on building coverage. From 22% to 20.1%. The other setbacks would remain the same. Not requesting a variance for anything. And the northerly setback is going from 14.1 to 14, cutting off that northwesterly jog, the house that was so close to Freeman Street, so that's gone, as it was before. And that makes the setback from Freeman Street more conforming at 12 feet and 10.1 feet from Hoyt Road. So our argument was that, and still is, that demolition and replacement of the existing dwelling would not constitute a substantial detriment to the entire neighborhood, and there would be no substantial increase in noise, odors, fumes, congestion, or the like. And would remind the board, not that it's binding, but it took a straw vote last month at the end per our request, and the vote was 5-0 to grant the variance. So we'd ask that you
Grant a special.
I'm sorry, thank you, Mr. Chairman, to grant the special permit, and ask that you grant it this evening. Thank you.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah, so the new structure, we talked about in the meeting last month, we talked about lines, increases or improve the sight line for along Freeman Street on a turn coming up. So that's one improvement.
Yes,
It's actually an improvement over that. The house height is basically the same height as the house on Freeman across Hoyt. So the property across from it is the same height as this one.
yes.
So-
Visually, that's the way I look at it. Another one, southerly, the building structure immediately southerly of that one is also basically the same height and substantial house.
So this change is making it, you could say, better sightline, so potentially safer. And the building across Hoyt it's not out of context with the neighborhood at all. So it's fully in context with the neighborhood.
I agree with those two statements, yes.
Also, when we talked about which I believe was 320-54A7, right?
Well, we didn't pursue that. So we didn't do anything for the garage.
I thought you were going
In
to
our
put
petition,
garage doors.
we were going to remove 2 walls and
Right.
more open, to have open grilling, and decided to forego that last month. It's not what we're asking,
So replacing garage doors is not, okay.
we're just replacing a garage door, that's what we're doing.
Right, okay. I have no other questions or comments.
Brian?
I actually had only questions last time, and I have no additional questions tonight. Thank you.
Al?
I have no questions.
Yeah, well, technically, even for replacing the doors, the garage would require a variance, because it talks about alteration of the structure. It's not a single family or 2-family.
The point I was going to make was contrary to that.
What's that?
The point I was going to make is contrary to that, because I spent about 20 minutes by trying to read this, try to make sense of it. It's very ambiguous, right? It basically says you may alter by right. But then it says, under these conditions, extensions or additions, or making it bigger would cause the problem, right? If they by right, then how can you alter it if you cannot alter it because of the conditions under 1?
What are you talking about, the
The
case,
garage.
the Comstock case?
I'm talking about 325-54A7.
A7B,
That's what it's under, right?
A7B. All other non-conforming structures shall require a variance from the board for any alteration, extension, or reconstruction.
What about A pre-existing non-conforming structure other than a single-family or 2-family residential structure may be altered or extended by right? I think it's covered under A, isn't it?
Well, by right, if it meets condition 1 and condition 2.
So there are no additions and extensions, so condition 1 doesn't cover, it's a chain, it's a facade, not an extension or an addition. They're not extending
Now,
it.
it only applies if it meets the setbacks, which it does not conform to the setbacks.
If what you're saying there, then A doesn't, it's impossible, the doesn't flow. It says you can do it, but this says you can't do it.
It says you can do it if the structure conforms to the current setbacks and coverage, which it doesn't.
So how can you do that? You can do it, but it already doesn't.
You can do it, you can't do it with this garage. Might be other garages where it would meet the setback. This garage does not meet the setback.
So a pre-existing non-conforming structure may be altered. May be altered.
Right.
It says that.
You gotta keep reading. If the building official determines it meets the following criteria, the
Right.
building official did not determine that.
But there are no additions and extensions, so one does not come into play.
Well, it comes into play in the sense they can't meet the setback right now with that garage. And
But it doesn't come into play because there are no additions or extensions.
I don't understand your argument, because you gotta read down to B. It says, if it doesn't setback, which it doesn't, then you go to B, all other non-conforming structures shall require a variance.
But that's not another non-conforming structure, it's the A non-conforming structure that I'm arguing.
Other than what's described in A1 and 2 above.
One doesn't apply to this.
Well, it applies, they don't meet it. It's applicants don't meet it.
How is it possible to meet it?
It's not.
How would it be possible for this garage to meet that?
This garage doesn't meet it, and can't meet it.
Pre-existing non-conforming structure. So
Okay.
no pre-existing non-conforming structure can meet this. That's what you're saying.
That's not true. It could be meeting it all over town. This garage doesn't meet it,
How is that?
because it doesn't meet the setback requirement.
Yep.
But that's the definition of non-conforming, right?
We're going to have a lot of fun on my next case.
Yeah, it's
know that.
non-conforming. Yeah, that's good too, but we'll hold that. It's, sure, it's non-conforming.
Okay, can I just,
Brian, wait a minute, Brian's anxious here.
well, no, I mean, actually, I'm kind of a little confused. Non-conforming lot, you have a garage, which all they're doing, as far as externally, is changing the garage door to be more aesthetic with the new house construction. I'm not seeing the issue here,
Well, let's look at,
because but it's non-conforming to begin with.
it's non-conforming.
They're not changing any of the setbacks, existing setbacks, or the building footprint.
Now, I understand that,
They're just swapping out the garage door.
right?
Now, we haven't, and he hasn't asked for like a second floor for an office or anything like that. So I'm really not getting why it isn't a rubber stamp on that.
Well, because 7B says all other non-conforming structures, meaning other than those that meet A, which this one doesn't, require a variance for any alteration, extension.
It's not an extension, and the alteration is strictly, I need a new garage door.
And that's not an alteration? Sure
So,
it is.
all right, so let's,
If I may, it might be considered de minimis, Mr. Chairman. It's just,
No, I'm gonna get there. I'm just,
I mean,
I want the board, because this keeps coming up.
so my house is on a non-conforming lot. If I replace my garage door, I have to come in front of the,
No, it says non-conforming structure. Go back to alteration or extension of other structures. It's the structure that's non-conforming.
But
If
it's-
this structure on a non-conforming
it's
setback,
it's an approved non-conforming. All right, so since my garage meets all the setback situations, then I can place my garage door and that's the end of it, not a big deal. But since this one,
yeah, you probably wouldn't even need a special permit. You'd have to see your site plan.
for a garage door.
Right. But this structure is non-conforming, the structure is non-conforming,
But
because it's
there's
whatever it
aspects
is,
of the whole
4
house
feet,
that aren't
4
conforming.
feet from the line, or 2 feet, whatever it is. No,
But so wouldn't that just be a special permit, not a variance?
well, look at what the words say in the bylaw.
I'm having a difficult, so what you're saying then is only is if you extend or add. Is that what you're saying? That only
Well, if-
applies to non-conforming structures that are being added to or extended.
Non-conforming structure that will conform to the current setbacks and coverage. And the non-conformance concerns the size of the lot, or the frontage, or an encroachment of the existing structure. However, I think that's what the bylaw says. Now, I've talked a couple of times about the Comstock and Borland cases that have totally confused it. And remember, I sent that memo around to everybody about it, and how they've confused the issue on garages. It's not at all clear, I guess. I think legally, we can go either to require a variance or a special permit, as long as it remains a garage. Okay, those cases are pretty clear, it's gotta remain a garage. What I objected to when the petitioner was here the first time and wanted to stop having it be a garage and be a cabana.
Where does it say that?
Well, it's in the cases, that's not in the bylaw.
So it's in the Comstock case.
Comstock or Borland, I forget which one. It's actually in the text of one, but they don't, it's kinda like they're talking, they're not really honing in on it. And then the second case, it's buried in a footnote, saying the first sort of, we don't know what's happening. So I just wanted to make a point on the bylaw. I think now that it's gonna remain a garage, and they're only gonna change the doors, handle that as a special permit under those cases. Point on what the bylaw says. And the bylaw, strictly reading it, says they need a variance.
And Mr.
My
Chairman,
particular position is, as long as it's still a garage, we can handle it as a special permit and be within the law.
So we don't have to, I mean, the one point you made about the Comstock or the Borland case, I'll have to go into that probably after this. It's not going to affect this case, so we don't have to continue to discuss it.
Well, we're gonna talk about it in the next case.
Probably, okay.
Yeah.
I've been biting my tongue through the whole conversation here, Mr. Chairman, and because I have a lot of things to say in the next case on that, so I don't necessarily, I was going to say, I know that you're a strict constructionist, judge, that's how we'd look at you, and I respect that. I disagree with your interpretation of that section of the bylaw, which I'll get to in the next case. And I agree with you that with what you're saying as far as long as it garage. So I'm hoping the board can look at this and say, it's just replaced door, because part of my point about this section of the bylaw is going to be that you can demolish and replace your house and build a beautiful new house and have a dilapidated old garage that's too close to the lot line. You can't touch it. You have to wait for it to fall down. And that doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm hoping we can at least have a garage door on this one.
Okay, the only other thing I'm gonna say, again, we always need to go back to the bylaw, and alterations is defined, it's a change in the interior or exterior of a building, but without changing the exterior dimensions. So it's any change in the interior or exterior that constitutes alteration.
Correct, and
That's what was getting me into,
but so that's allowed, and it says the residential, the other than the residential structure may have walls taken down, may have doors removed, may do all this, as long as you don't change the size, based on what
no,
you
it
just said.
doesn't say that at all. It says may be altered by right if the building official determines that it meets these criteria. The building commissioner has not made that determination.
Well, didn't he throw it out because it was just basically,
It would have,
it was non-conforming?
I agree with the chairman, it would have to meet the 20-foot setback in his reading of the bylaw. I have a
His
different,
reading of it, I agree.
yeah, I have a different
But
argument to make as to why that section doesn't apply when we get to the next case, but I was hoping that we could make it more aesthetically pleasing to the petitioner and the neighbor to have the garage doors fit with the decor of the house.
I think, yes, I would tend to.
Yeah, and I think we can
If
handle
that's a special
that
permit, then
permit. This really was a discussion for the board, trying to understand how we
Correct.
got here. And we're going to discuss it at greater length in the next case.
If I may just say something.
Go
We
ahead.
go through a lot of non-conforming structures, tremendous amount of them. And I have absolutely no difficulty with that door being changed. I've been over that property several times. And the mere changing of that garage door from the antique, I think that it is now, is not going to violate the code of the town of Harwich.
Now, based upon your reading of this, are you not being able to change up the garage door needing a special permit or variance? Does that apply if you want to change out the windows on the garage door, on the garage too?
Literally, yeah, if you read the bylaw. Now, I'm not saying it makes sense. I happen to agree with Kroll that it doesn't make any sense. But until, somebody convinces the planning department that this is what the bylaw says, that we're supposed to be operating under.
I have a way. Next case, I have a way for you to get there. I have a roadmap.
It doesn't make any sense. I agree with that, but this is what it says. So,
Get a flashlight too.
anyway, let's go on to Mr. Nunnally, see if he's...
One question I have, driveway, that's 10 feet? Is that what it's,
Onto the,
onto the lawn,
onto their lot, yes.
10 feet? Okay.
It's, as a practical matter, the pavement ends, as you can see on that dotted lines, ends at White Roads. So, as with most people, they consider that part of their lawn, part of their property. It isn't legally, but parking there is not a problem
It's not, they're not worried about cars hanging out into the road.
into the road, because that's where, it's 22 feet off of the asphalt.
Right. Okay. No other questions?
Okay, thank you.
And it's
Attorney
3-car widths.
Right.
Attorney Kroll, anything further?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak to this application? Yes, no, sir? Do you want to speak? No. No? Okay. No one else? Okay. I'll, in that case, move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Second, Al Donahue. Any discussion? All in favor of closing the public hearing? Okay, public hearing is closed. Discussion on the case, I think we can handle the petition as a special permit. I was just trying to make a point on the bylaw. I do believe, since it's now going to remain a garage, that we can, under those two cases, approve the swapping out of the doors under a special permit. I do think we need, obviously, the construction time condition and our new general condition. And we had also talked the last time about requiring that all parking of the family contractor service personnel of the owner of the property be restricted on site and not on any public road or way because of the property. That was a concern, if you remember, of the neighbors about on-street parking. And I don't think that's an unreasonable condition to add. I don't know, but what do you guys think?
I just have a question regarding that. I don't know that there's any indications that that public way has no parking on it. I agree that it's narrow and everything else, but I don't have any that being posted that it has no public parking on it.
I don't know.
I mean, based upon, I actually was concerned, I went down, I talked to the police department about how they address a narrow road like that, particularly in an intersection. And I spoke to the captain, I'm not quite sure who it was. But he had the fact that they can, if it's not temporary, if it's just, someone's having a yard sale, things like that, it's a temporary situation, they're okay with a car parked on the street, but not on a regular basis, because they want to make sure that two cars can pass at any particular time. All right, and now they consider that intersection a major problem, because that's why there's two stop signs on both sides of the road. So, they have a friend over, they have a guest, for the afternoon. you know, the police aren't gonna be worried about a car being parked there. But on a regular basis, they would be, so I would say, I'm fine with the condition that the family itself has gotta park all their cars on the lot. You know, obviously, they're going over as well, on that, you know, off the parking on the grass.
But I don't think that's the issue, is it, Mr. Chairman? You're talking about during the construction, that
No,
everything has to be
I was talking
on
about
the...
after construction
Oh,
also.
after construction.
We had talked about that last time.
We did, and I don't think that was an issue with the petitioner.
She was okay with it.
She was
is what
okay
I
with it,
recall. Yeah, she did not object to that, is what my
Right.
recollection is, yes. So, I don't mind putting it on. I think it's a
So
reasonable.
to be the owners or the occupants, not necessarily guests.
Here's the problem, that's a public way, regardless of all the issues with the and stop signs and everything else. It is not prohibited parking on there. That is up to the police department to enforce that. I don't think it has anything to do with us.
No, that's a good point.
Well, except we are empowered to put any reasonable condition we want on a special permit or variance.
With regard to time of day and the parking of equipment.
Let's go back to the bylaw.
You could soften it a little bit, Mr. Chairman, say, to the extent possible, or they'll make a good faith effort to always park on site if at all possible.
Well, let me
Can't
just-
control everybody all the time.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, in approving a special permit, the board may attach such conditions and safeguards as are deemed necessary to protect the public and the neighborhood, such as but not limited to requirement of off-street parking or other special features beyond the minimum required by this or other applicable laws. So we can do it if we certainly have the ability to do it.
Where is that? That's in.
This is 32551 B.
My response, if I may, to that, basically building on the same footprint, nothing changing with regard to that lot. If they didn't do anything to this house, they still would be able to park on the roads, and so they're basically building on the same footprint. Why should they be restricted further by the board if they're not creating any more traffic or congestion than already exists in the use of that house?
Well, because the house has been there forever before we had a chance to impose conditions. And they're asking, they can't do it of right, that's why they're here. So we are entitled to impose.
I agree, you're
reasonable
entitled.
conditions as
I'm questioning whether it's reasonable to do that and more or less single them out as opposed to anybody else in the neighborhood that hasn't come before the board.
well,
Currently, the driveway, and I went last month, the driveway goes all the way to the garage now, right? So right now, there's kind of ample parking for those three cars. They're switching it to, a close call, so to speak. So that's why
They're putting a patio in, but there's
Putting a
still
patio.
grass there that people could pull up onto,
Yeah, they
yes.
can park up,
People do that all the time.
they could, and that 3 spots in the front.
Yeah.
They could probably park 6 cars in that, into
they
the
go on the
grass.
grass.
well, it's up to the board. I mean, I'm just one vote here. I think we should do it. But
I don't see the need for putting a restriction on, certainly on during construction, they need to be off Main Street on the property during construction, no doubt. But beyond that, and I think it's to Al's point, we're putting restrictions on a public way that, first of all, no one else in the neighborhood has those restrictions, and that is remit department to enforce that. And there's nothing they're doing that's causing further hazard that would force us to do that. If they were putting it closer to the street, causing a sightline problem, it would be reasonable for us to do that, in that sense. But nothing going on other than, I just see the need for it, beyond the construction.
I think we've already got a sightline problem there.
Exactly.
With the
It's not an
existing
issue. It's gotten better.
structure. If you have people parking, it's gonna make it even worse, people parking on Hoyt there. But,
But what they're doing is gonna actually make that better.
Well, because of the change of the sight line
Correct.
on Freeman.
Right.
not much. Well, okay, that's just, that was my thought. Anything else? I'll entertain a motion in the case then.
Case number 2022-16, Sherry Mayat and Breezy, through her attorney, William Kroll, has been granted a special permit for the property located at 53 Freeman Street, assesses map 23, parcel R1, to raise and repair non-conforming family dwelling pursuant to the Harwich zoning bylaw 325-52, 354A, MGL, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and 10.
No, just 6. 10 is
6,
the,
excuse me, that's the
variance.
variance, yeah. As a property project will intensify one or more existing nonconformities and not create a new nonconformity, will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood of the existing structures. All work shall be performed in accordance with the plans submitted by this application. The property is located in a congested area. There will be no demolition, exterior construction, and new landscaping during the period of June 30 through Labor Day of any year. During the life of the project, all construction vehicles shall be parked on the property and not on any public street or road. As a condition of this approval, the violation of the terms and conditions of the special permit may be enforced as a violation of the Harwich zoning bylaw pursuant to MGL 40A Section 7 and Harwich zoning bylaw as these may be amended from time to time.
Could I have a second on Al's motion? Okay, second for Mr. Sullivan. Discussion on the motion. Just one question for Attorney Crowell. Are all the other building plans, A through A1 through whatever, with the exception of the new one, still okay to go? Okay. A vote on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, special permit granted.
Thank you very much.
So, Alicia, do we have our stamp?
I think it's right there.
Oh, sorry, it was right there in front of me. Thanks, Alicia. Okay, Al, you can call our next case, please.
Mr. Chairman, if I may interject, I'm suspecting that the next case might take a little bit longer than the last case tonight, so builder is here. The other folks in the audience say they're here for the second case, not the third case. Would it be possible to take the third case now?
Yeah, I don't have any
So-
problem with that.
The builder, child, needs to get home.
Okay, well, actually, a builder might want to stay.
I know it's
Maybe the
almost
builder wants to stay, maybe he doesn't want to get home, yeah. Okay, so, case 2022-20, I guess. Okay.
James and Patricia Cool, through their attorney, William Kroll, the The owner of the property located at 16 Vestibit Road, assesses 2 parcels K18 in the RR zoning district. The application seeks a special permit or the alternative of variance to demolish a porch on a non-conforming single-family dwelling and construct a sunroom and storage pursuant to the highway zoning bylaw, MGL 325, 52, and 54, and MGL Chapter 40A, Section 6 and 10.
Okay, Attorney Crowell, if you could introduce yourself for the record, please, and who is at the table with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney William Kroll representing Mr. and Mrs. Cool tonight, so finally I'm the cool guy. And I have Sean T-Bear here with me, the builder of the proposed renovation of the carport. And I submitted with the petition a copy of the assessor's map to show you its location in the Great Sand Lakes area, so-called, on Restibit Road, 16 Restibit Road. And the petitioners are seeking to demolish and replace the existing carport, replace it with a sunroom and a storage room as shown on the certified plot plan by Terry Warner and the building and elevation plans by Mark McKenzie that were submitted with the petition. The existing carport is 16.4 feet from the southwest lot line, so it's non-conforming. It's supposed to be 20 under the current bylaw. The building coverage will increase slightly from 14.5 to 15. 15 is the max, so it will remain conforming. And the site coverage will increase slightly from 24.5, I'm sorry, from 24 to 24.5, but under the 25% maximum. So we're conforming as to building coverage and site coverage. We're non-conforming as to the west, the southeasterly setback, 16.4. So we're looking to construct basically 3.6 feet of habitable space within the 20-foot setback by making the carport into a sunroom with heat and a storage room out towards Restibit Road as shown on the plans. So along the lines of the Gale case, we're seeking to intensify an existing nonconformity by habitable space, converting the carport to habitable space within the 20-foot setback, and that there would be no substantial increase in noise, odors, fumes, congestion, or the like, no additional traffic. We would not be creating a nuisance, and there would be no substantial detriment to the entire neighborhood. We ask that you grant this special permit this evening.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
I have no question.
Brian?
Well, I didn't have any questions until the last case, so I just wanted to just make sure I understand. So in the last case, the issue was the fact that, in your thoughts, they were within the, they were non-conforming on the setbacks. And here, I always felt the fact that if you weren't on a situation that's turning from a garage to a sunroom without heat, so it wouldn't be habitable space, that would not be an issue. But now that it's habitable space, is it in fact creating a new nonconformity? And that's what I'm not too sure about. And I just wanted to raise that. I don't have any, maybe, well, if you could maybe answer that question for me.
Well, yes, I intend to answer it further on the next case, but we've done many of these over the years of converting garages to habitable space. In this particular case, that is attached to the residence.
Yep.
This board has taken the position that because it's attached,
Right.
that,
Right.
that's okay. It's,
Well,
it's-
we've taken the position that it's part of the residential structure.
Right.
So it,
Right, okay, so I just wanted to,
The roof line is
the same.
is contiguous. I mean, the roof line is part of this house.
Right.
So the roof itself covers the area we're talking about.
the key is, Attorney Crowell said we've been down this road long before it
Yeah,
comes to
I
open
just wanted to get
land.
my bearings back on straight.
When it's attached, and it's really an integral part of the, consider that to be a single-family residence in this case, so therefore clearly under the special permit.
Okay.
No, the fact that the building habitable space does not create a new nonconformity, they're just intensifying nonconformity into the setback.
Plus, under our bylaw, if I may, we're taking something that, a pre-existing non-conforming structure, and on the same footprint, adding habitable space. Under our bylaw, that's a special permit. It allows for that exception, that type of situation, and that's a special permit, in my opinion, even under our bylaw, even without the Gale case.
I understand.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's always been the board's position, where it's part of the house, where it's attached.
All right, good, just clarify that. Other than that, I have no questions.
Mr. Chairman, like to enter from the Health Department, their information. I have reviewed the application for the special permit to demolish carport, construct a sunroom at 16 Respite Road, property located in Zone 2, therefore limited to 2 bedrooms maximum. Health Department has no issues with the conversion of the carport into a sunroom. However, the building permit will need to have a complete plan with septic location, pass a Title V inspection, and will prior to any building permit issuance.
If I may, we're not seeing any issues with that as far as the existing septic system is concerned. If it turned out that there was, and it meant not putting heat in order to be compliant with the Board of Health requirements, then we wouldn't put any heat in. We'd like to have the option to have heat if it's allowed.
Okay, that's a Board of Health issue.
Right.
Right. So we've asked for heat in the structure.
Anything else, Al?
No, no.
I have nothing,
Thank
Dave.
you.
Anyone in the audience want to speak? Hearing no one, I'll move to close the public hearing. Second from Chris Murphy. Any discussion on the motion? No, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is closed. Gavel. I will entertain a motion in this case.
Okay, case number 2022-20, James and Patricia Cool, through their agent, William Kroll, have been given a special permit by the board for 16 Respite Road, accesses map 62, parcel K18, in zoning conforming with single-family dwelling, construct the sunroom storage pursuant to the Harwich zoning bylaws of 325, 52, and 54, and MGL Chapter 40A. As to proceed with the project will not, will intensify one or more existing nonconformities, or will not create a nonconformity, and will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing structures. All work shall be performed in accordance with the plans submitted with this application. The permit will be granted subject to the following conditions. It's a pretty narrow neighborhood up in there. I don't know how busy it gets in the summer months, but I suspect, like everything else, it's pretty busy. So there'll be no demolition, exterior construction on new landscaping during the period of June 30 through Labor Day of any year. Can you get your equipment on that property?
June 30th to
Labor Day,
Labor Day.
unless you can get all your equipment on the property. during construction.
Can't park in the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can get everything on the property, I think.
Because they want to get going as soon as
Yes.
possible.
All right, so during the life of the project, construction vehicles shall be parked on the property and not in any public street or road. Is the condition of this approval that the violation in terms of this conditions, a special permit may be enforced as a violation of the Harwich zoning bylaw pursuant to MGL Chapter 48, Section 7, and the Harwich zoning bylaw, as these may be amended from time to time.
Okay, now, I take that you have amended your motion, so you're not gonna put the time restriction on, require in
Yes,
your
have it
motion
on-
that they
on the
park on the
property,
site?
yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
I stand corrected.
I just wanted to clarify that. Can I have a second on Al's motion? Okay, second, Brian, I guess. Any discussion on the motion? No, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, special permit granted. Thank you. Good luck with the
Day.
project.
You need more, you need copies of these plans back, or? Okay.
Good luck with the baby.
1-year-old.
Oh, wow.
You can just sleep while you can.
I can't remember mercifully.
That's exactly what it is, Mr. Chairman. You just forget.
Oh, gosh, they just keep coming here. Wow. For a small project, a lot of plans there. Okay, Al, if you would call
Case
our-
number 2022-19, Matthew C. and Pamela A. Menzel, to their attorney, William Kroll, the owners of the property located 25 Cross Street, Assessors Map 14, parcel S5, in the zoning district. The applicant seeks a special permit or any alternative, a variance to raise and replace a non-conforming detached garage pursuant to the Harwich zoning bylaws of 325-2 and 54 and MGL Chapter 48, Section 6 and 10.
Okay, Attorney Kroll, if you could introduce yourself again for the record, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney William Kroll from Harwich Port, representing Mr. and Mrs. Matthew Manzel with regard to the petition for 25 Cross Street. They are seeking a special permit this evening to replace the existing garage with a new garage as per the proposed conditions planned by Moran Engineering, and the building and elevation plans by Thomas Moore Design Company. The existing garage is accessory to the existing single-family residence. It's currently 2.1 feet from the southeasterly lot line, and they are proposing to move it back somewhat to 4.5 feet to make it more conforming. It will be a little bit larger dimensionally, as shown on the plan. It shows the footprint of the existing garage. It would be demolished and replaced, and then a little bit larger to the south and to the west, and then with a deck off of the south side. The existing building coverage would remain 20%. It's currently at 15.7. It will increase slightly to 17.3% to remain conforming. The existing site coverage will also remain conforming. It's 31%, will increase slightly to 33.7%. Building coverage and site coverage are both conforming. The existing nonconformity from the lot line will become a little more conforming. But there will be new structure within the 20-foot setback because it's getting a little bit larger on the south side and the west side. And it'll have a deck on the south side. So The petitioners pursuant to the Gale case are considering this the garage as an accessory structure, residential structure to a single-family residence. Asking for a special permit from the board this evening. Now, as I said earlier this evening, I have some arguments to make concerning why this should be a special permit opposed to a variance. The easiest of which, in my opinion, is that I basically had the same case before this board a year ago on in Winding Way. And this board, we sought to renovate the house and then to demolish and replace the garage and move it easterly, as shown on the plan. So we demolished and replaced and moved the garage, and this board voted 5-0 to grant a special permit a year ago for that, in that situation. And I would submit that this is the same case that we're asking for tonight. Just a copy of that.
May I answer the health department's response to the situation?
Okay.
The health department, I have received an application for special permit to raise and replace detached garage, 25 Cross Street. The septic system is installed in 2007, inspected in 19, and is designed for 5-bedroom maximum. All our records indicate that there are 5 existing bedrooms in the main dwelling, and the proposed office will be considered number 6. The order of the health department to approve the building permit, either fully compliant 6-bedroom septic system needs to be installed, or a bedroom in the main dwelling is to be eliminated.
We're aware of that. In communications with the health department on that issue. What I'd also like to do, that's my practical, simpler approach to why this would be a special permit, is because I think this is the same case as a year ago when the board did grant a special permit, 5-0, Mr. Ryer, Mr. Murphy, Mr. Donahue, Mr. Baker, Mr. Sullivan. Now, that being said, based upon the prior discussions and the comments that were made a month ago during the hearing on the first petition tonight on White Road and Freeman Street, I wanted to walk you through what I think makes sense to me from a legal point of view as to why paragraph 7 does not apply to this situation. In my opinion, and I think that the building commissioner is leading you, giving you a roadmap that it may hopefully be, because I have other garage cases coming up after this. The argument is that a garage, whether it's attached or detached, is an accessory structure to a residential, single-family residential dwelling. That being said, if you consider that an extension of a single-family residential structure, then 7B would not apply, because it says all other non-conforming structures, but we're not an all other non-conforming structure that would require a variance, because we are part of a pre-existing non-conforming single-family residence. So I have a handout for the board members, if you'll bear with me on this, to take you through various parts of the, take you through the building and various parts of the bylaw to make my case that this is, a garage is part of the single-family residence. So you'll see in the building commissioner's correspondence dated February 15, 2022, that he says in the first paragraph, and I've tried to underline and circle parts that I think are essential, but he says that this is an application for a residential accessory building bedrooms pursuant to 325 Table 1 Use Table 1A. So the next piece of paper after the building inspector's letter is a copy of that table. All right? Table looks like this. And under 1A, it says accessory building residential. The word residential is there, without bedrooms. And you look to RM, and I circled P. That's at the 20-foot setback, that's a permitted use as of right. Wouldn't need a special permit from this board or the planning board. And it says it's an accessory building residential. Then, if you go to the definitions page, which is the next page of the handout, and it says definition of accessory building residential. This is the one I'm talking about here. And it uses again the word residential. And it says a detached structure, detached, located on the same lot with the principal residential structure to which it is accessory and not used for seasonal or year-round living. And such structures include, but are not limited to, tool shed, boathouse, etc., one private garage for not more than 3 automobiles. So it's saying that that's a residential structure. It's accessory to the primary residence, but it's a detached residential structure. Allowed under our bylaw as of right if you meet the setbacks. Okay? If you want bedrooms in it, it's still allowed, but it's allowed by special permit under the table, the previous table, from the planning board. And I've seen several of these in the last several years, 2 or 3 years from the planning board. The building inspector goes on to, the building commissioner goes on to cite the Table 2 area regulations that I circled, 325, or he says, I'm sorry, your proposal as submitted is not conforming to the following section of the bylaw. So this is where he's saying this is what he, as the zoning enforcement agent, thinks is applicable. He says 325 Table 2 area regulations, that's the next page, which says you have to have 40,000 square feet because we're pre-existing non-conforming. And then he cites specifically 325 54A2. So your next page is a page of the bylaw, 325 54A2, and that's what I was just mentioning in the previous case, that if the building official determines that a proposed addition, extension to a non-conforming single or to a residential structure, again it says residential structure, if it increases the non-conforming nature, then it's a special permit allowed under our bylaw, by special permit, if it's A, B, or C, or any combination of those. A structure built in the same footprint to an increased building height, we're basically building in the same footprint. A structure built in the same footprint that does increase the habitable floor area, we're proposing to have a rec room and an office and a bathroom on the second floor, which would be habitable space. C, a structure that continues along the same line as an existing encroachment without increasing that encroachment. Well, what we're doing is actually making it better, so instead of running along the line, the existing line at 2.1 feet, we've increased that to 4.5 feet and then continued along that same 4.5 feet. So we're in spirit meeting paragraph C because we're continuing along the same line without increasing it, but we're pushed it back another 2.4 feet. So that's what he's saying, the building commissioner is saying applies here, is not, he doesn't say, which is the last, the next to the last page, the next page, he doesn't say that it's 54A27B. He doesn't say that. He doesn't cite that. He cites only 2, which is special permit. He does not say you need a variance. I think that's very important in his referral letter. So he says, relief is required, next paragraph, from zoning board of appeals pursuant to 325-54. Again, very important. 54 is the special permit section for non-conforming structures. 52, which he doesn't cite, 52 is the variance section. So it's also under the Mass General Laws, it's section 6 is the special permit, section 10 is the variances. So I attached as the last page the variance section of our bylaw that says 52. He's not citing that. He's saying you only need to go under 54 special permits. So I would submit that he's trying to give you a roadmap as to why this is a single-family residential structure, accessory to that single-family residential structure, and you could make a finding as a special permit that this structure, as part of the residence, is pre-existing non-conforming. So I wanted to make a couple of, I hope, common sense points that if you relate it to the prior case, the one with the carport, for example, that's allowed because it's part of the attached, it's attached to the residential structure. Why should it matter whether that's an attachment to the residential structure or it's detached residential structure? Why it's still an existing nonconformity? That garage has been there since 1950. 60 to 70 years it's been there as a pre-existing non-conforming structure. Why should it hinge this relief, special permit versus variance, and you know the difference in difficulty in meeting the criteria, why should it matter whether it's detached or attached? And I would submit that the building inspector is saying, and our bylaw is saying, it doesn't have to be attached. We have a specific section that says it can be an accessory residential building detached. Number one, I don't think it should matter that it's attached or not. More than 12 years ago, this board, Henry Ogborn, consistently said a garage is a use of the property, it's a part of the residential dwelling, and it didn't matter whether the garage was attached or detached. So there's some prior history of this board in that regard. Now, I've also pointed out the prior decision this board made in the Driscoll case. The point I made on the very first case today, when you're talking about the garage door, how does it make common sense that you can refurbish the single-family residence, demolish and replace it, renovate it, whatever, even if it's inches from the lot line, you can do all that under the Gale case and have this dilapidated garage left over that you can't even put a new garage door. Doesn't make any sense to me. I think the Comstock case, we can reconcile this with the Comstock case, because the Comstock case, confusing as it is, and you know, as they say, bad cases make bad law, confusing as it is, it does say that you can go special permit instead of variance if you're not creating a new nonconformity. And I would argue that we're not creating a new nonconformity because this structure already exists, and it's part of the residential dwelling, it's a detached part of that residential dwelling. If you don't agree with that, and I'm arguing against myself, but if you don't agree with that, then make a difference whether the carport, for example, is attached to the house or not, because it's not used presently as a residence. It's not habitable space. Why should that matter? That it's attached or not? To be consistent, maybe it should be, no, you can't do that. But I would argue that you should be able to do that, and you should with an attached carport. You should be able to do it with a detached carport. And I agree with the chairman, fine, as long as it stays a garage or part of it remains a garage or above. I think the Comstock case says that if you have an exception, that if the bylaw allows you an exception to have a special permit allow for a nonconformity, then that would be consistent with the Comstock case. And what I've tried to show you today is that we have an exception. If you're an accessory building residential, detached structure, including a one private garage for not more than 3 automobiles, which we are, then that's an exception already carved out in our bylaw that under 354A, there are 3 different ways of meeting that under as a special permit. As I've argued, that a structure in the same footprint to an increased height, same footprint, more habitable area, continuing along the same line. We already have that exception in our bylaw in conformance with the Comstock case. It says you can have that and still treat it as a special permit. I think it squares with Comstock. I think it squares with our bylaw. I think it squares with your previous holding a year ago. So I would argue that we are a special permit case tonight and not a variance. And thank you for indulging me with all of that.
Okay. Obviously, I have a different view than Attorney Kroll, which I expressed the last time around. I think the building commissioner, yes, he does talk about the area regulations there in his heading 325-54A2, but then in the first paragraph, he talks about 325, or we have to meet that, and that includes the requirement that if it's a non-conforming structure, other than a single-family or two-family residential structure, you need a variance. So we're still stuck with that in the bylaw, and I don't think the definition of accessory building gets us there, because that definition doesn't say it's a residential structure. It says it's a detached structure. It doesn't talk about whether it's residential, one family or two family. Accessory building residential. But that doesn't mean it's a one family or two family. Unfortunately, the bylaw doesn't spell that out.
We need a new bylaw. We need a new bylaw.
I'm not disagreeing, but we're looking at the current bylaw. That's what we're.
Oh, I am. I have many, many
supposed to
times.
live with it and
Trying to live with it.
That's our charter, if you will. Let me read you the footnote from the Comstock case, gentlemen. This is in a footnote of the Comstock case that Attorney Kroll was quoting. It says, and here we go, although we do not reach the question whether the legislature intended that the extensive statutory protection afforded to one and two family residents also applies to serve as accessory structure to such residents. So they're not addressing it. They're not going to talk about that. But they go on to say, we do note that one case at least touches on this issue, and they reference the Borland case, which we talked. They say in the Borland case, the Supreme Judicial Court sets forth certain examples of small-scale alterations, extensions, or structural changes to a pre-existing house that nevertheless could be allowed as of right because they do not increase the nonconforming nature. And they say the addition of small storage sheds is included on that list. And here's the really key point. Also included is the addition of one-story garage, without mention of whether such garage was attached or freestanding. This case, when we're done, the last case we talked about changing the doors, because when it was all said and done, it was still gonna be a garage. This application is when it's not gonna be a garage when they're done, it's gonna be a garage plus. They're gonna have a garage, it's gonna be two-story, because in the second story, they're gonna have a bathroom, a game room, a den. So, I don't think it's the same, I don't think that's what the Comstock case or the Borland case had in mind, that this would be allowed under special permit. And the Driscoll case, I actually don't remember the specifics, but my recollection was when it was done, it was gonna be a garage without game room or any bathroom or any of that kind of stuff. It was just gonna be a garage, so I don't think that's applicable.
I have the specifics, Mr. Chairman.
Well, we've always taken the position that each case is unique, and without going through the whole file again, I don't think we should go down that road without a thorough examination of the file to make sure we've got apples and apples.
It had a second floor on the garage. May I make a comment about the Comstock case?
Well, let's go through the board, and then we'll come back. That's my 2 cents. Chris?
So were you arguing that 54, was it 54A7 doesn't apply here?
Right.
Because?
Because it says alteration or extension of other structures. We're not another structure. We're a single-family residential structure. We're accessory to it, but we're part of that single-family residential structure, whether we're attached or not.
So
That's my argument.
So the carport was clearly attached. I mean, it was,
Right.
had the same roof.
Right.
There's no roof line. You could see the sky. in
I don't
between
see the
these
roof line as being the crucial issue, as whether
two.
it's
What ties them together? Why is this different from any other shed or anything else on?
I
this
would
lot?
argue that a shed is also a residential structure because it's defined in our bylaw. In accessory building residential, it says shed.
So you're saying that 54A7 applies to
Commercial structures.
lots that don't have any residential.
Commercial structures.
So residential, it's only this non-residential structure, is what you're saying?
Right, yes. Because I think that was the intent, was that you can extend residential structures, whether attached or detached, to be consistent with the definitions, as I say, without going through the whole argument again, but to be consistent with accessory building residential. It says right there, residential. And when it's talking in number 7, a pre-existing non-conforming structure other than a single-family residential structure. It keeps using the word residential.
But it also singular, my point. It's not a single-family residential structure. It's an accessory building residential structure.
And we're going around in circles, but my argument is that an accessory structure is part of the single-family residential structure. That's
No, I
my
understand that your argument, that's not spelled out in the bylaw, is what I'm saying. And maybe it should be, but this is the bylaw we've been given.
This entire section here talks about residential and structures within that residential lot.
Yes.
So all of a sudden now he's saying the 7A7, all of a sudden doesn't talk about
I think
residential.
I think
I find
that
that hard to believe.
7B, I think is, again, I don't think it's well-written, but I think that's an afterthought to say this doesn't apply to commercial structures.
I think 7 is a building on a residential lot. Everything else within A 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 talks about a single-family residential structure in that lot. Why would this one be any different?
I'm trying to make the best sense I can out of a strained bylaw. I have to piece together. Ties in with the Comstock case where they said, look, we're looking for a way to accomplish without imposing a variance requirement, but instead a case-by-case value judgment based on whose interests are being served, and so it's essential that local boards have the flexibility to adjust those requirements on a case-by-case special permit. And that's what I'd argue you have here, is to be practical, how can you say you can renovate the house, but you can't touch the garage that could be imploding?
I don't disagree with your argument there at all. We made that once already today. But
Yeah.
The problem with this one is that 7A1, the proposed addition, and this clearly is an addition extension on this from the original footprint. You're extending the original footprint. That extension does not conform to current setbacks. And my reading of 7A1 talks about the extension. If you want to build an extension, you got to put it in an area that conforms. You can't just do the Gale case type extension.
Yes and no. I did it 2 months ago with a house overlooking Witchmere Harbor, all right? And there was a detached residential structure, a cottage there that was already too close to the lot line. And we used that nonconformity as the basis for building a pergola that was going to be closer than 20 feet. I've done it in other cases. We did it with this case on Hoyt Road. A year ago, we took the house was 8 feet from the lot line, and we used that nonconformity in that case as the basis for moving the garage closer than 20 feet to the southerly lot line. We used the house, not the garage. Other times we've used the garage. So that's an existing nonconformity, even though it's not currently residentially used as habitable space, as the basis for an existing nonconformity case for the special permit. So what I'm hoping is, regardless of all the academics, that the board would see fit to grant this as a special permit, as it did a year ago on the Hoyt Road case, because it's going to remain a garage. Even if it's a garage plus one, it's a garage. Still a garage.
I have no more questions.
Brian?
I'm finished with my questions.
Before we get on to my questions regarding the garage on the second floor, but I was surprised at the Board of Health. I realize it's not up to us to do this, but this isn't, this hit me as one, I don't recall in the past on a second floor garage situation, because we've had this is not our first rodeo on this,
Right.
requiring that it be viewed as a bedroom regarding the septic. This was the first for me when I saw this, and I was really confused by it.
We disagree with it entirely, because it's an open area, home office game room. There's no partition walls or anything to make it into a bedroom.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first time I've seen them require a bedroom. It had to be viewed as a bedroom and increase. So that kind of, when I read that. And,
I mean, their rules are their rules.
well, I understand. I just don't know what they're going by.
I have no idea.
You know, to tell you the truth, because they haven't, as I recall in the past, made that an issue regarding the septic systems. And we had,
Now, they made somebody recently enlarge the opening into the room, so it would not be.
well, no, that I've seen. No, I've seen the fact they get rid of doors and that kind of stuff. So, but this is a big open area, and I was just surprised that they were considering this as another bedroom. and having that impact the septic system, okay? And, you know, it's just, I was confused by that. I didn't know if the board had any advice as to they would consider it that way. So, all right. When I look at, first of all, I came in tonight, I thought this was going to be too straightforward, issue. And I even told myself this is going to be an early meeting,
I wanted it that way, Mr. Sullivan.
Not that I gotta be there any place. So, when I look at this, I'm just reminded back, and again, every case is unique on its own. And I'm not trying to bring things up, but I recall the one case that I voted against in the past, because then I was, wasn't as educated as I am now, but like tonight I feel as though I haven't learned anything all year. When I look at this, we had that 2 Quasin Lane where they had a shed about, 8 feet from the lot line, and it was a 105-foot shed, and it turned into a 800 square foot building between the first and second floor, and the second floor had a bedroom. And that was already, it was detached, it was major, and I thought at that point we had approved it because it had the same sight lines as this little shed, and we approved this big garage with over a second floor bedroom, not at all. And that case didn't seem to be the same issues. And I think I understand why you're raising those issues regarding the zoning. And quite frankly, I'm just between that case and this one, I'm a little confused regarding the zoning code. I really am.
I don't remember the specifics of that case, so I can't address it. That's one of the reasons why we try to
Make everything unique.
at each one, because we only have
Right.
a file
There
in
was a
front
chance
of us tonight.
we required a variance for that. I remember
No,
the case.
there was
I
no
just do not
variance. It
remember.
was a special permit.
I remember it. I remember that.
And I thought, I voted against it because I just thought that going from this little shed, which could only fit a couple of lawnmowers and some tools, turn into an 800 square foot building. And I thought,
My vague recollection is they had a bedroom or bathroom or something in it.
second floor. No, they
And
didn't.
that's why we.
The shed had nothing. You just only had a lawnmower and some tools.
All right, then I don't remember the case.
Huh?
I remember
You
it.
remember?
I didn't handle it, but I'm aware of it, and I think it
I
was the
remember
first
it.
time the board went along with sort of the Comstock.
Yeah, and I thought, I voted against it, but I thought, okay, common sense, I thought it was just, just way out of the, out of the cards as far as, what they were doing at,
I believe it went on the letter of the law what an accessory structure was. We replaced one accessory structure with another accessory structure
So-
and kept the existing non-conformance where it was.
All right, so then why is this different?
I don't disagree.
That's what I'm confused about. I'm not quite sure. And I have to go back over it. I read the code before coming here tonight. I said, okay, I was a little confused by the code, and I was a little confused by, as you brought up, when I read 7B or 7A there. And, I mean, to me, this wouldn't be the first time we seem to be, it's only the first time we allowed garage to have a situation where they had a quasi-office in it as well. So I just need a little more education here as far as appreciate the comments you made on the zoning thing here, but, I'm looking at this common sense-wise, given what we've done in the past, I think coming for the board, I thought this was straightforward and approved, and now I've, quite frankly, I'm not quite sure, what the application of the zoning is, given common sense. But I do think that the code is conflicting. I think it leads you in more than one direction. And that's just my comment to the thing. I appreciate everyone's comments on this whole thing.
Al?
I have to agree with my friend here to my left. This is not a straightforward. We had a boathouse, I can recall that, which wound up being an apartment for in-laws. The same thing came out with regard to the septic system, and the family had to take one of the bedrooms and close it up before they could have the apartment. And that all came under the new law bylaw with regard to affordable housing, or having not affordable housing so much, but having housing. Planning board had changed some things with regard to providing housing on property that had not previously been used as housing. Extension was to put the apartment upstairs in the boathouse. And the boathouse, it was separate from the main house. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to let it go along.
Okay, well, I pretty much disagree with Attorney Crowell on the law. Not that it doesn't make sense. I understand it doesn't make sense to treat them differently. But the bylaw hasn't been amended. This is the bylaw, and our charge to administer the bylaw and the laws of Massachusetts. And I think this should be changed, but it hasn't been. The one that it faces, I think, I'm willing to go along, like on the prior case where it's going to still be a garage, or where we just changed the doors out, still a garage. This is going to be a lot more than a garage. For the one or two cars, I'd have no problem. But they now want to really change the structure. They want to put a bathroom, a deck, a game room up there. And I just don't think that's what the current bylaw permits under a special permit in this situation. So, David,
Questions?
does anyone in the public want to address this? Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Bob Nickerson, Harwich Port. First, I'm going to give you a little something to look at. Bill. You and I chatted.
Thank you. And would you mind signing in when you go back
Sure.
to the podium?
Thank you. Great, thank you.
Dave and Dave, man, that's tough.
Thank you, sir.
So I've been to the Board of Health twice and had discussions about the septic. Here's the bedroom, if you want it.
And so once more, sir, could you state your name and your address for us too, please, for the
Sure.
record?
Robert Nickerson. Oh, I need to write this down. 617 Route 28, Harwich Port.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so first I wanted to kind of talk to what it's going to look like. That's why I did this. What I did was I scanned in the building, and you can see I had to overlay it. It kind of evaporates, so I had to color in the line. So on the first page, that what you see there is, oops, I got another one, is the existing building below it, and then I get to the building. I say about because all the scales aren't on it, but I scaled the drawing to get an approximate height. And then you can see to the garage to the left, which did need a variance to be 10-foot, built that garage, which we own, and my father-in-law, her father, lives in. Okay, see the size of the garage. It was a 1920s house. We restored the whole house. We saved the house. It's a bungalow house, so it's a small house. And so you can see the size of the garage they want right next to our garage. Okay, and then to give you some perspective, flip the and I can't get their whole house in, but I can get all sorts of pieces in there. And if you look, the height of our garage is about 15 feet. The 7.4 feet is the sill plate height that they pointed out. The approximate height of the top of the garage is 24 feet. The pergola is 28 feet. The approximate height of the highest point on their house is 19 feet. So they want a garage that's 24 feet, and their house isn't any higher than 19 feet. And this is right on the lot line next to our property, okay? So I wanted to kind of give you that whole feel of where it is, what it looks like, and we went through the same type of, and we had to get a variance to get that foot-longer garage put in place. Here are some of my points. First off, when the neighbors moved in and bought this house about 3 or 4 years ago, they're from New Jersey, we went over to them, said hello and so forth and all that. And we even showed them where the bounds were. We had bounds put in our yard. We showed them where the markets were, where your property line was and everything. And then now they come up with this whole plan. They don't even inform us. The only informants we got was when we got our package in the mail and said this is going to be on the docket. So wouldn't you think a neighbor would be neighborly and come to you and say, hey, we're looking at putting a garage in that's bigger and tear it down, instead of just coming through the mail? That's when my father-in-law lives right next door. That was one thing. So that doesn't have anything to do with ZBA or appeals, but it does have a certain feel of what we're dealing with. Okay, so we don't have a problem replacing the existing garage with a newer structure that's reasonable, but does not include living space. We do not support the project as proposed. You can see how large that project is and how high that is. And I'm going to jump off my little script here and say, that is a bedroom upstairs. It can easily be a bedroom upstairs. They rent the house all summer. They rent it to multi-families. That bedroom will be easily put in 2 sets of bunk beds with the kids. It's a full bath. It's not just a half bath. It's a full bath. So to say it's not a bedroom is, I think, unlikely. All right? Well, they just put all the names of possibilities so they didn't have to go through the septic issue. The house, the proposed structure is too large for the lot and totally out of balance with the existing house and neighborhood, which can be seen on the photos that I doctored up and overlaid and so forth. No garage should be larger than any house, especially a historic house. The original house there was about 1800. The base of that little house that you see was 1800. The garage on the far left was 1930. The one on the right is 1950. My wife does all this research, so that's where I get all my answers. The septic is limited to 5 bedrooms. If they want to go to 6, they either have to put in a new septic system, or they have to take out one of the bedrooms in the main house, or eliminate the bedroom and the garage. Why is there 2 sets of stairs in the house? They have a step coming up, and then they have this out back. Now, if that's just not a bedroom, why are you having a deck out back that's 10 feet off the ground, looking into our property and looking at the property behind us, if people are upstairs all the time in some fashion? Okay? Just throwing it out there. Neighbors don't need renters sitting on their deck partying at night. These are people that rent the house 10 weeks a year. They don't live in the house. As landlords, they don't deal with the problems encountered by tenants. The neighbors do. If you have to face that in your neighborhood, I don't know if you do, but we do. We're the ones that have to call the renters. The owners live in New Jersey. They don't know what's going on. The peak is about, I told you, 24 foot, and the tallest part of the house is only 19. Just to reiterate that. During the rental season, there's normally 2 to 4 cars in the driveway. Adding another bedroom could easily increase the 5. They could probably get 3 families in there instead of 2 families in there. If they move forward with the project, what type of conditions would be included? I really comments on this. This is very important to us because we live right by Bayview Road. At the end of Bayview Road is a house at the very end that was worked on for 2 years. They parked continually in the road. You could not get by them, and nothing was done. So conditions of building while you're building a project should be included, in our opinion. So, conditions. First off, when they did the house on Bank Street, that's right behind Dr. DeLear's old lot, if you know what I'm talking about. Okay, that's the big empty lot that's across from Cumberland Farms. That's where Dr. DeLear's house was. So they're building that house. Those guys would play music and swear, and we could hear them a block and a half away all the time. So what we're doing is, if it goes forward in some fashion, we would like you to consider, no radios or music playing, no work on weekends, reasonable work hours during the week, no yelling, cussing, or excessive construction noise. My 90-year-old father-in-law lives next door, and his age is creates variable sleep habits, so construction process and hours need to be reasonable. The site needs to be kept clean. Almost every site you see is a mess, stuff flying around. We restored our 617 Main Street house. We cleaned it every single night. There was nothing outside. We also met with our neighbors and showed them the plans before we built. We also put in a sprinkler system in the yard next door because they allowed us access so we could work on one side of our house. That's neighborly. The garage will be even taller than shown on the foundation if the foundation of the garage is raised 12 to 18 inches. We don't know where that foundation is. Most garages come up a little bit. So all my numbers there could be increased by a foot or foot and a half, depending on where the bottom line is. The last comment is for the board. When you make decisions on projects such as these, remember that if approved, changes such as these will preclude many local residents from acquiring the home. Approving plans and changes like the affordable housing problem. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you. Anyone else? Would you like to speak, ma'am? No? Attorney Crowell, do you want to say anything further?
I know both Mr. and Mrs. Nickerson and respect them greatly. My client could not be here tonight from New Jersey. He had, and I meant to say this at the beginning of the hearing, and I neglected to do so, but he was in close contact with someone with COVID in the last several days and could not come up from New Jersey. Probably what makes the most sense right now would be to continue the case, to see if we could, and I apologize, you folks were not contacted prior to the hearing, prior to the submission. I was not aware of that. And probably what makes the most sense right now is to continue the case to next month to give us time to talk with the Nickersons. He indicated that they might be okay with a newer structure under certain conditions. So, and given the board's concern about the bylaw, the Comstock case, and so forth, I'm hopeful that we could work something out with the Nickersons, then come back to this board and receive either a special permit or, if necessary, a variance for some kind of a modified structure.
Okay. I mean, I understand the Nickerson's concern. My concerns, of course, go beyond that. I think you need a variance.
Right.
Unless you make it just the garage, which I think the Comstock case, and that's why I've said to the board several times, under the Comstock case, it's sufficiently unclear that I think we could take a valid position to go with a special permit or to require a variance. We can go either way. And what I object to on this proposal is when this structure is, the proposed structure is something far different from the garage you're starting with, and I think that requires a variance. And it's an accessory building, but it's not a single-family dwelling.
Understood.
The Gale case doesn't apply because that only applies to single-family dwellings, so it's not a Gale, in my opinion, it's not a Gale case situation. And I guess to the.
So if I heard you correctly, if we worked something out with the Nickersons and came back with something that is just a garage, that you'd be inclined to go special permit as opposed to variance?
Depending on what it looks like, and I'm only speaking from my position, you know, we've got 4 other board members here. But I think that was the gist of our discussion. And this is, and I have to say, Mr. Nickerson, this is very helpful to put it in perspective. I was just arguing the law, but this makes it even more abundantly clear, my point, that when it's done, this is not the same thing we were talking about on the first case where they were simply switching out the doors.
Well, also as a special permit, detrimental to the overall neighborhood is one of the important keys.
That would be tougher, I can't tell.
Clearly, it's
I'd
out
have
of
to go
scale.
down and look again, now that
Me
I've
too.
seen this. I'd want to take another look at the neighborhood.
Right.
But,
I mean,
I'm-
but it, again, it's not just one neighbor. It
Right.
has to be the
It has to
whole
be
That's why I
neighborhood.
say I'm not prepared to go there
Yeah,
yet.
same thing on that Hoyt Road.
Right.
I've got the more fundamental concern that I think this requires a variance and argument, but I don't see anything on the topography or the shape that's gonna get a variance.
Well, I
with a variance
was
requirement.
prepared to argue that.
No, I appreciate, and I don't want to preclude your arguing, but just looking at it, and I was down there and looked at the lot, and I don't see it, but we'll see. Yes,
No,
sir.
I just wanted to say that I didn't want to be out of line and saying, oh, this garage is way too tall and right. I went down the street purposely. There's no garage higher than any house on Pleasant Street. Now, Cross Street too, probably. I didn't go down Cross Street. So that's what kind of put me over the top, the height of the structure in comparison to the height of the houses. And there's a brand-new garage at 62 that still has building space, probably living space, and it's shorter than the peak of their roof too, and not quite as intrusive, and not on the lot line as close. So just take a ride down there. I appreciate it if you did. Thanks.
Yeah, we have, and I'm not sure that factor that it's higher than the house makes it substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
I'd have to look at the street again. I'd have to go back down and look at it again.
Yeah, I want to look at that again, but I've got a much bigger concern that we don't even get there. We need a variance for this case, in my opinion. But again, I'm only one of 5 voting members here, but
Can I ask a question at this point regarding the
Sure.
variance?
yeah, because the hearing is still open. So.
I mean, I've walked a lot, I've been around the building. I'm not quite sure what, and again, your argument, Attorney Crowe, how you're gonna present it, what the hardship would possibly be for a variance.
I don't think there is, but
I
again,
have
I don't
one.
want to.
A trailer, if you want, of my argument for
Okay.
a variance next time.
I don't see that it's going to be met, but certainly the applicant's entitled to make the argument, and they've asked for an alternative. Where's my?
Well, according to Mr. Nickerson, he board to grant a variance to extend his garage 10 feet. So a prior board has seen fit to grant a variance for a very similar structure, similarly located. And I think the argument would simply be that there's a unique location of the structures and the septic system on the lot that precludes this garage from being moved to be conforming. You can't move it towards the house to get 20 feet. You can't move the septic system without a significant expense. That's a hardship. You can't connect it, the foundation, to an 1870s house without jeopardizing the integrity of that
Okay.
historic home.
So you go.
So you've got a financial hardship there, and again, what do? You've got a nice house, and if you have a garage that's deteriorating, and you can't touch it, that doesn't make any sense. So,
I would agree with you on that, yeah.
you would, did you say?
I would
Yeah.
agree with you on that, yeah.
I mean, again, the homeowner says, well, come on, I gotta be able to do something. Okay, scale it down, but if they wanted to renovate that garage, demolish and replace that garage and build something similar to what the Nickersons have there, then that makes sense to me, that's reasonable, and I think there's enough criteria you had on for a variance, if you need the variance, to go that route. You didn't go that route on the other Hoyt Road case a year ago. We moved it, we made it somewhat larger, believe it was a second story, and you voted unanimously special permit. So it's more whatever it takes to get some relief for the homeowner when they want to do something about their garage. And I would make the same type of argument for Ms. Az's for her garage at some point. Of she's going to demolish and replace and build this beautiful house and have this garage that doesn't fit and needs to be renovated. She needs to be able to have some relief. Can't always wait for the bylaw to be changed or cases to come down. That's what this board does. It looks at the equities, what's fair and reasonable under the circumstances, and grants a variance from the bylaw and the case law to allow what you think in your would be appropriate for this site on an individual case-by-case basis. I think that's the function of this.
And that's why
So
I'd
there
like
was
to,
one that you talked about on Crossan that you brought up, and Brian, and wondering about the discussion on that. I remember the location of that, and I believe that was a special permit.
Yeah, it was.
Up to a road, so it was maybe 10 feet.
Bay
from the
Road, I think.
It wasn't gonna bother anyone on that road. Someone who was objecting was like 75 feet away. Moving it, gonna be moved somewhat forward. I don't remember whether it was gonna be conforming when it moved forward. Doesn't matter.
No, it
Off
wasn't.
to the side, the property was another 50, 60 feet away. So it was quite a bit distance away from any affected structure.
I'm familiar with that site and what happened with that, yes.
And that was probably, I'd have to look at the video to find out exactly how the discussion went, but it seems to me that would probably be why the discussion led that way. It's just, it was a lot of room they could do that.
I drove by a lot of structure.
Exactly, it would be a lot of structure. The picture that Mr. Nicholson put up showed that. And my guess is 20/20 hindsight, don't know how I would have changed the discussion, 'cause I don't remember the discussion on that.
I'm just saying quasi structure there.
Well, the house.
And the garage.
The garage, a
Yeah,
lot of
both.
structure.
this is why I don't like to have prior
back.
cases cited to us.
I
every
apologize
trial,
for that.
because none of us remember the specifics, and unless we have the file in front of us, we should not be saying we did this on that case, because they might not be at all similar. Nobody remembers.
Sure,
without
no, I
the file.
Because,
And I think we're remiss to go down that way.
sure, again, I apologize to the chairman for doing that, but I'm just trying to, again, just trying to put apples and oranges together, my own thinking, how I approach these cases.
And my feeling is, and I disagree somewhat on that last statement there, but let me clarify, if they came back with just a garage without all this stuff up above, I think that's a different story than what's been presented to us tonight.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I think that
absolutely.
then becomes due to special permit, because it's still gonna be a garage. When this is done, this is not a garage, this is another whole different entity with what could be a bedroom, but even if it's not, it's got a full bath, and it's gonna be a great room, if you will. And I think Mr. Nickerson's point about the double staircase and a high deck is well taken. I mean, this is not just a garage.
It looks like a bathroom. It looks like a bedroom to me.
I don't know what it is, but it's not just the garage.
So is there any place in here which differentiates it? Again, we have cases where we've changed the function of the building, a shed to a garage, accessory building. The fact that this would remain a garage versus another one going from a garage to a grill area, a little grill shelter, I think is how it was described.
And that's what we turned
I
down
don't
on the
understand
first.
why it would have to be a garage. Is there anything in here that says you can't change the function?
Well, no, but my point is, if it's gonna be new, then the Comstock really doesn't permit that necessarily. You have to look at what the structure is. And they talked about a one-story, two-car garage. One-story, two-car garage. That's a garage. This is not a garage what's proposed here. It's not one story. I guess maybe it's two-car, but there's a whole other,
Yeah, this one is
Unit
clear.
there.
This one here was changed.
so, the first case tonight, it's still gonna be a garage. They just wanna put a nicer door on. The reason why we were not crazy about it at the prior meeting was because they were gonna change it completely to a cabana. Then it wasn't gonna be a garage anymore.
That's why I don't understand why that matters. It's becoming a simpler function. It's becoming less obtrusive. It's becoming less of a structure, becoming more of a patio-ish.
I just think under the bylaw, it's not permitted without a variance.
Yeah, no,
I'd like to
And
see,
taken-
I need to see what that is specifically.
The whole thing is unclear, and I've said that a million times between the Comstock cases, the poorly written bylaw, but it is what to try to wade through. This is what we have. And I'm opposed to is just trying to do what the equities are, because that's not our charge. We're supposed to try, to the best of our ability, to administer the bylaw and the decisions and the, state laws.
Mhm.
So I don't think we can just say, gee, it'd be nice, let these people have what they want.
Well, I'm not at all saying that.
That's
I'm
not
just
our
trying to
purview.
interpret this in a
Yeah, I know,
logical
and
way.
that's what we, and it's not very easy, because it's not well-written, and I keep saying this, but unfortunately, that's not our jurisdiction. The planning board has the sole jurisdiction to change the bylaw. And as you know, I probably shouldn't say this on the record, they never asked for our input. That's one reason why it's so messed up, because they write the bylaw, but they don't have to interpret it. We do. And they don't ask for our comments or input.
They don't, huh?
No, never have.
That's their,
Now,
Their
the
loss.
most recent changes, there's some on this warrant, they don't affect us, they don't have anything to do with us, and that's fine. But like, when they changed the, what was it down here, the Royal, they
Yes.
changed the, not low income, but the income housing. And
Less than 10,000.
we had the Royal case before us, and this board would have had a lot of input, but we weren't asked to supply any. I'm sorry, ma'am.
Hi, sorry. Barbara Nickerson, 617 Route 28. Just as a clarification, Mr. Sullivan, we had friends over on that similar situation. They were rebuilding their garage, and they put an office upstairs, literally an office with the bathroom for her genealogy. They met all the setbacks and everything else when they rebuilt the garage, and they were required to put in a whole new septic. Otherwise, they were forced to decommission one of their bedrooms in the main house. So it is going on, just, I'm not sure the building and health always talk about some of this stuff, so.
good point, thank you very much,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Okay, so where are we, Attorney Crowell? Do you want to ask for a continuance?
Yes, please, to next month.
Okay, I will move that we continue case number 2022-19 to 7 p.m. And our next meeting, May
25th.
May
25th.
May 25th. Can I have a second on that motion, please? Second, we'll make it Chris Murphy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, that case will be continued until next month, 7 PM on May 25th. Why can I never find the?
Mr. Sullivan, you said you didn't think it would be like this when you woke up this morning?
No, I actually didn't. I thought,
I did. I knew it was gonna be like this.
no, I thought it was kind of. Yeah, that's what I told my wife, too.
Okay, well, Attorney Kroll, you keep me on my toes.
Likewise, Mr. Chairman.
We only have Mr. Burke still with us.
Yes. Mr. Jim, over at the Belmont condominium,
Harry Carrero?
no.
Thank you, good night. Hedersted, Dean Hedersted?
No, Jim, who said.
Oh, yeah, it was the attorney.
Yep,
Yeah.
yes,
Oh, okay.
begins with H.
Yep, Hilliard, Jim Hilliard.
Jim Hilliard, thank you. Long day, sorry.
Took me a minute. He's still practicing. He's, I'm not
Very thoughtful.
I'm not sure where, he's told me, but I don't remember. Off Cape, I believe. Okay, so,
I'll get out of your,
okay, well, we will see you next month. Attorney Kroll.
Hey, Dave, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so, the open meeting law and all that, just to clarify one
and
thing.
is this still on video right now?
Oh, yeah.
No, I knew it was. So, obviously, we can't discuss any cases, that's crystal clear. Could we, outside of a meeting like this, discuss the bylaw?
Yes.
Because
Because that's-
that would be valuable to me to hash some of this stuff out. Because I'd like to hear your thought process in greater detail without putting a lot of other people's time. Because it's just, this is an important case, and it's gonna keep coming up. I mean, Attorney Kroll's already said the others coming in.
Absolutely. That's why I encourage Attorney Kroll to talk to our planner, Jonathan Eidman, and clarify the bylaw on garages.
I have been, and he agrees.
Because it keeps, this has been going on for years now.
Yeah.
This and the other one was accessory apartments.
Oh, yeah.
That's the other bugaboo. That's
That
what
was-
you were
That's
talking
what I was
about.
talking about, yeah.
We haven't had one of them in a while, but we had a whole slew of them. Attorney Kroll represented people on several of them, I remember. Okay, gentlemen, you should have a copy of new rules and regulations that I sent around. Did anyone have any comments on them?
No, I read them through, of course, and I wasn't, everything read fine, but I didn't compare it to the old report, or the old rules and regulations.
The bulk of the changes are just on the 40B, the comprehensive.
Okay,
permit. Everything else is pretty much what we've already had. I just wanted to update the comprehensive permit sections.
okay.
It looked good to me.
Yeah, no, I know.
All right, so I would move that the board adopt the Town of Harwich Board of Appeals rules and regulations identified down in the footer by revision 4/27/22.
Night.
Good night, Mr. Motion. Second by Mr. Murphy. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I thought these were well done.
I will sign these and bring them to the clerk tomorrow.
Oh,
Yes,
the only comment I had was, you had the transmittal letter, like it was a second.
got the transmittal letter. I was going to discuss that next. Yes.
Okay, all right, I didn't,
Do you need more than one copy for the town clerk?
What's that?
Do you need more than one copy for the town clerk?
I have no idea, but I'll take another one
I
if
think
you
you
have
do.
one. What I'm gonna do is I'll have them stamp it and then bring you up one.
Have them stamp, sign 2 copies, have them stamp both, and then bring one up.
Bring one up to
Yep.
you, yes, and then you can distribute it to the board and post it on our website, please. Thank you. I will do that tomorrow, because I'll be here. The transmittal letter, in the new rules and regs, the applicants are not gonna like it, but I said they have to give me 2 copies of all the documents, the package. And my thought was, we want one for each of us, there's 8 of us, and there's 5 selectmen, we want one for each of the selectmen, so that's 13 right there. And the remaining, whatever the math, whatever my strong suit, will go 1 to each department. And as I said, if you looked at the regs, the definition of local boards is pretty wide, so I went down our list of departments and boards and picked out any one that I thought might have input into a 40B project. The only one I think I didn't put on the school committee. That's the Board of Selectmen really can address that one. And I don't know who you would send it to, I guess the superintendent of schools. I don't know if they would have anything to do with it, because they wouldn't know necessarily the population going into the project to make any kind of plans for in the school system.
I mean, they may have input regarding if there's going to be anything, you know, for a bus stop and so forth, for that kind of a situation. And, I mean, they might have some sort of comment, and
Right.
maybe they'd appreciate the fact that you put them in the loop. You know?
I could add the board, the superintendent of schools. I don't really care.
You right?
What's that?
The school has their own board. The school have a committee per school.
All right, why don't I add them then?
Might as well add 'em. I can always get it to who it should go to.
Yeah,
They
they
do
might,
their own thing. The school, I feel like, is a whole different entity. I don't see anybody from the school in here.
Okay,
yeah, they might appreciate the information, particularly with these
all right, I'll add them,
projects. They're gonna have more.
which means you might have to make one copy of everything, because I don't want to change the rules again to make it 33.
We'll cross that bridge when we get there. It's fine.
And some of these people might not need it, like I've got both the Conservation Department and Conservation Commission on here. I don't exactly know what the jurisdiction is of each, but again, I figured I'd be inclusive. And this is just, I don't think we need to approve this by resolution. This is really, I just wanted you folks to see it, and if you have any comments, let me have them.
Well, many of the land projects that people are going to be doing this on may impact next to conservation property, or the fact that there's, you know, issues with wetlands, you know.
And that's why I thought they should be
Yeah,
involved.
I think it makes a
So-
lot of sense.
And the same way, you know, the Harwich Housing Authority, Harwich Housing Committee, I don't, let them both see it. I figured let anybody who might have an interest take a look at it and give us
At
comments.
least they've been notified.
Exactly. And this is a living document, so we'll change it, but we had no regular transmittal letters, so I felt we really ought to get one. And I gave tonight Leisha an application. We've never had a 40B application. So I took our standard application and things that weren't applicable and then added to it 5.2 of the new rules, which sets forth all of the documents they have to include. And that comes right out of the comprehensive permit regulations. So that's all authorized by the, and it's all the information we want anyway, so it spells it out. I was worried that what's in our standard application might conflict with the state regs, so let's go right to the state regs, and that's why they're in our rules also. So, that's it.
Do you have an idea yet about any time frame that our next 40B may be coming in front of us?
None. Supposedly, they went to one of the subsidizing agencies. They did it at the state level, whatever they were. They said they were going to do what was required for the next step. And that was probably, what's this, April? That probably was in December, January. on-site review that they invited the selectmen to and other interested parties in town. And after that, they then had X days to go to the first state filing. I'm assuming they did it, I don't know. And who knows how long, you know, the state's gonna do all of its thing, and
So it could be the fall.
could be, or could be never get approved by the state, in which case, that's it, it's kaput.
It's no longer friendly 40B, so
It's no longer a friendly 40B.
more complicated.
No, the selectmen decided not to pursue that. I mean, I don't know, I looked at the requirements or the rules or whatever for the friendly 40B, and it did not seem to me like you gained a lot as a town by pursuing that.
By pursuing a friendly?
Yeah. So, I don't know, we'll see.
I'm going with, doing the thing online and reading the stuff myself, I thought when it becomes a unfriendly one.
Well, it's not, that's,
You have less, may have less input, and then just driving it down the road.
maybe, it's hard to tell. And it's not really an unfriendly one. It just, that's kind of a bad term, I think, to call it a friendly 40B.
Given what they
It's just-
know, they didn't want to
Yeah,
approve it.
it's more collaborative, but it can be in part of a hearing too. It depends on the developer and the attitude they take. So we'll have to wait and see. Anyone have anything else?
You brought up, someone mentioned the Royal. Just,
Royal Apartments.
is anything with the change in the zoning, are they going forward with that?
They,
It seemed like it affected.
yeah, they were.
Oh, it was written for
The
'em.
new bylaw permitted them to do what they wanted to do.
Right.
And the, not nursing home, well, yeah, is it, no, it's a B&B there across the street.
Yeah, Winston.
Yeah, he used to own the Royal.
Yeah.
So he and I believe another neighbor sued the owners of the Royal to stop the development. And I believe it's just sitting somewhere in court.
So since the zoning was sued to stop it.
Yeah, they filed, I guess, for a building permit and,
After zoning change, after it left us, then the zoning changed, and then they
Right.
reapplied, and then they got sued.
right, so it didn't, last I heard, it was in litigation, and you could see this thing is boarded off, not boarded off, fenced off,
That's a fence,
deteriorating.
Construction fence, yeah.
So, it come to this board, and I don't know, was anybody here besides Al?
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
I was- yeah, we were,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we didn't approve it.
we were,
Yeah, we were not too happy with a lot of the aspects of it, as you recall.
I don't remember, did they withdraw it? I don't know if we.
they may have
Did we say?
withdrawn it.
They,
Didn't they withdraw?
they did. We did not vote on it.
Oh, okay, that's,
They withdrew it, because it was
Withdrew it. I thought
it was
they
gonna be
withdrew it.
denied. They wanted a variance, one or more variances, and it was obvious we were not gonna, agree to.
Yeah.
They didn't meet the
I
requirements.
think you've covered about as much as I think you've covered about as much as you want to cover.
I don't think you or I were full members at that point.
Oh, no, I was, that's right, I
Well,
was
you and I were both,
associate or we were, that's right.
alternate.
We're all-
Okay, if there's nothing else, I'm gonna move to adjourn at 9:13 PM. Can I have a second? Second on my motion, okay. David, all in favor? Aye, okay, we are adjourned. Jamie, if you're there, you can close down the public recording, please. Thank you. Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much.
We want, I don't know if anyone wants to get